Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. We tier listed last week with the big man Younes himself. You guys absolutely loved it. Over 50,000 views on a 45-minute video, and you guys are watching it for bloody ages. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video today, because so many of you have been commenting saying that you think it's time for Graham Potter to go. Okay, I want to know in the comment section who it is who's going to take over, because in this video today, Younes and I are going to be ranking 13 potential managers who could take over from Graham Potter either 5 minutes ago, 5 minutes time, 5 days time, or in the summer. Who knows? Is Potter going to be sacked? Younes, give me the lowdown, mate. It's been another treacherous few hours for us, but welcome back to GBFC, and I think we're on the same boat. Really, aren't we? We're both sailing in the same direction here.
Yeah, we are. Once again, thanks for having me on. This will be a fun video, and I'm looking forward to seeing where everyone stands, because there's going to be so many different avenues we can go down. But yeah, I'm good. Overall, I'm alright. But the last 24 hours, and now what we're hearing today, I woke up this morning with a little bit of optimism that we might get a club statement. We just might, right? And then nothing happens. And then you start hearing whispers that nothing's going to happen. And then we get the inevitable Matt Law news telling us that it's the next 2 games, which is completely counterproductive, in my opinion, and I think for you as well. I find it baffling why he's going to get the next 2 games.
It's why I've got like a grin on my face, because I'm not actually happy and I'm not actually enjoying this one bit, but I'm just like, 2 games, it's pointless. If you give him 2 games, you might as well give him 22, because then you might as well just let him go through to the end of the season. But maybe not. Maybe in this video today we can literally do the work for Todd himself.
Let's hope he's watching.
If he does stumble across this, he's been sitting in Twitter Spaces before. This wouldn't be the first time he's engaged with the Chelsea fan base on the internet. Again, this is all based on the premise that Younes and I both think that Graham Potter's time at Chelsea is done. I have seen enough. Younes has said there he's seen enough. Will Chelsea take action? And if they were to take action, would you consider Diego Simeone? Whilst you're thinking about that, I'll tell everybody the tiers. We have got, let me just get it up on the screen now. Great, as in like, yeah, I could take him as a Chelsea manager. Temporary, which means, for the context of this video, comes in now and does it to the end of the season. Another manager comes in the summer. Impossible, which is just like, there is no fathomable reason as to why this could be in the existence of the universe. And no thank you, or no way, or F off, don't even think about it. Diego Simeone, Atletico Madrid's manager, rumours he might well be leaving. Fire away. Everything's off the cuff, by the way. And Younes' video is out on his channel in a few hours, so stay tuned, link in the description. But Younes, Simeone.
And yeah, my video later will be related as a follow-on from this, so you're going to want to catch that after catching this, so make sure you do. Diego Simeone. I think a lot of people are going to be against this one, but you know what? There's one quality, and I think I'm going to stand with quite a few managers here. There's one quality that he has that this team desperately needs, so I'm going to go with great. Despite,
you would take Diego Simeone at Chelsea?
I think he'd be an option. He's not my first or even second, but he's, if it came to it, I'd accept it.
Yeah, and it's one of those where, because he might be leaving Atletico, it's pretty certain he's leaving Atletico, I think, in the summer, so it's definitely not impossible. It's not a no thank you, because he's a great manager, and I think he's the kind of manager I like. He's got that fire, he's got that passion. Yeah. Yes, the football isn't brilliant, but I think right now I would take ultra defensive 4-4-2 Sean Dyche Simeone ball all day long, because I'm absolutely bewildered by what I've had to witness so far. So you know what? I'm actually inclined to agree with you. I think I can't say no to Diego Simeone, and this is also a bit of a problem, right? Because when Graham Potter came in, he was up there with one of my top choices, which again, does that make me stupid? Maybe. You can say that if you want to in the comments below. I don't think this is going to be a popular one, so I'm going to go from Simeone and put him in great for us, but then I'm going to move to the second manager on this list, because no one's discussed this properly. Emma Hayes.
Emma Hayes,
women's manager, who has been touted as one of the best managers in women's football, is already at the club. She's on the payroll. Is it too much to even consider the first ever woman manager in the Premier League being at Chelsea? And would Todd Boehly even risk jeopardising the incredible work she's done at the women's team for the sake of potentially helping the men?
Oh man, Emma Hayes. Personally, yeah, if I knew it would just be perfect, I would absolutely take Emma Hayes. Not a problem, right? But yeah, I don't want to jeopardize what she's doing with the women because they look unbelievable, and I want that to keep going. We can't shy away from the fact that it shouldn't be an issue. Right, I don't believe it should be an issue, but I think realistically, on a human level, we know that it's just going to be an issue. If you have an Emma Hayes, for example, I think this can go for any woman in the men's game. You could come across some characters that are going to be like, what? Got to listen to her? Like, and it's wrong. It's not right. It's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. And that's tough. Although I think as a football coach, I think in terms of what she's about, everything about her, she's Chelsea through and through. The DNA and what is demanded at Chelsea, she understands to a T. Her style of management, I love. I absolutely think it's spot on. You hear some of the words that she says and the way that she gets her team to play, and the way that she's a bit no nonsense. I absolutely love. I think any top manager should have that, and hence I've got a little issue with Graham Potter because I don't sense it. But Emma Hayes, I think, absolutely has it. She epitomises Chelsea. So I think, yeah, I personally would. If I could stick her into great, I think I'd stick her into great. Although I do think it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I was inclined to believe it's impossible. I also think it's one of those where I believe in the next 5 years we will see more integration of women in the men's game. But I also think it is one of those where the repercussions of, let's just hypothetically say Emma Hayes does a Graham Potter after Graham Potter. The repercussions of this are just catastrophic.
Exactly.
For any women trying to infiltrate into the men's game in the future. Which, like we've both said, if Phil Neville can manage a women's team, then Emma Hayes can manage a men's team. There's absolutely no reason why not. And for all of the reasons that Younes said, brilliant manager. But I think we've just, for now, got to go into impossible. But let us know in the comments down below. Would you take Emma Hayes, and do you think it's feasible? Big discussion there. But Hansi Flick is the next one, the German national team coach. Immediately, I've got a problem because he likes to play with a 4-2-3-1, and blimey O'Reilly, have I seen enough of a 4-2-3-1 under Graham Potter in recent weeks. Do you know what my problem is with Hansi Flick?
Oh, go on.
He had a fantastic record with Bayern, but that Germany team in the World Cup who didn't even make it out of the group stage, how on earth can this guy, again, based off of recency bias, which is why we're also criticising Potter now, but because before Potter went on a run of winning 2 in his last 16 games at Chelsea, people were still considering him that guy that did a great job at Brighton, that guy who's got that brilliant story in the cold, dark nights in Sweden, and the man who did very well at Swansea. And now, due to recency bias, we've written Graham Potter off. So am I being a little bit too recent, and was Germany's World Cup group that much better than I'm giving the opposition credit for? And is Hansi Flick really that great manager that he's one of the top names I'm hearing at the moment? But I can't buy into it.
It's tough because I remember thinking the same for Tuchel at one point, and I was like, I'm not so sure. And then when we did hire him, I was like, okay, well, let's try and dig in a little bit. And then you start to piece things together and go, okay, maybe we'll be all right. With Hansi Flick, it's two extremes. I agree with his work in Germany for the German national team, the World Cup. It's not been good. But for Bayern Munich, he won literally every single thing there is to win. Champions League included. And they were playing great football, but you could make the argument that's just because he was managing Bayern Munich. Whereas at the same time, Pep Guardiola didn't win the Champions League with Bayern Munich, though, did he? So it's like that's
true.
It's
all Man City.
And hopefully that stays that way. But with Hansi Flick, I'm torn. I think in terms of his discipline and his foundation, that's probably something that can help Chelsea right now. Yeah, in terms of his achievement, he's won the Champions League. He's got a sense of winning, which is what I think any Chelsea manager needs. You need to have some sort of experience of doing it wherever you've done it, basically, reaching that level wherever you've coached. His CV is very short. It's just Bayern Munich, and that's it. Aside from that, it's the German national team, and that's not gone very well. So I think there's potential. I think if there's a good chance he comes into Chelsea and boom, it clicks. It very might well.
Yeah.
But there's also a chance that recency bias kicks in. His work from Germany continues, and he doesn't get a hold of this team. It's very, very volatile.
It is volatile, and I think that's the biggest problem that we've got here, is because these are obviously our opinions, which is why we're asking for your opinions in the comments below. We have our own thoughts on what we would like to see at Chelsea, but as we have come to understand with the recent form, with Potter failing with this experiment at Chelsea right now, to win 2 in 16 is a failure, no matter how much you fancy Graham Potter or not. So, at the end of the day, the fact he's still here at the time of recording this on Monday afternoon, the fact he's still here suggests that it is going to be different. It's just about how long it's going to take for Bowley, Clear Lake Capital, all of these new board members to actually be like, enough is enough. Will we see the same happen again? Like, at what point do we actually have to draw a line? I thought we were drawing a line with Graham Potter. When our season is absolutely ruined before the end of February, there is another man who knows Chelsea probably better than anybody in the world, who is still at the club as a member of the academy staff. If Graham Potter is to go, would you allow John Terry to take the helm until the end of the season, just so that we have got somebody in there who knows everything there is about this club, who has an affinity with the players, and again, there isn't anybody else out there who wants Chelsea to win more than JT. So could John Terry be a temporary solution?
John Terry, for me, can be, but only under one condition. Only one condition, because I don't want to go down the Lampard route again. Just do it for the sake of...
No, I can't. No, yeah, you're right.
But I do think that Terry's different. But as I've said, I've only got one condition. If it's to get him in and take charge of the team with the possibility that he could be given the job, I'd be like, no, don't do it. If he's going to take it up until the end of the season, whilst he is going to be the assistant to the next manager, then yes, that's my condition. Because whoever the next manager is going to be can easily, with a phone, just, stay on the blower during the rest of the season and keep in contact and prepare for the arrival of whoever it would be. But if John Terry is going to be an assistant to the next guy, then taking it for the rest of the season, which is basically what we got 3 months left. It's peanuts. Right now, we don't need a tactical mastermind in place. We need someone who's going to steer the ship. We need someone who's going to get rid of what is happening now, just like Di Matteo did. Di Matteo didn't have to do anything tactical. Di Matteo came in and admitted long after that when he came in, he just brought the group back together. That's it.
Yeah.
For the final, we told them to basically go out and play football.
Need that, surely.
That's it, because the talent is there. So, and the one thing that we're lacking is that cutting edge, that ability to really push yourself beyond a certain limit, beyond a certain line. Right now, everyone's taking everything a little too relaxed, a little too easy, and just going along with the flow. We need someone to really kick something up, everyone's asses. So John Terry can definitely do that. But, as I've said, on one condition. And I say this for whoever the next manager will be. If JT will be the assistant, then yes, he can take it for the rest of the season.
Okay, so John Terry is temporary. If John Terry becomes Chelsea manager and we win the Champions League now, what you just said is getting clipped up over and over again as the genius, the method behind the madness. Imagine in August last year, right? Someone says to you, by the way, mate, Tuchel ain't going to be your manager. The next guy ain't going to be your manager. JT is, and you win the Champions League again after everybody almost had a mental breakdown in the end of February. Just imagine it for a brief wee moment. Okay,
that would be
the
typical Chelsea, wouldn't it? It's just the life in.
It would be the
life
most Chelsea thing we have ever seen. And you know what they say? Three times a charm, is it? Is that the right phrase?
Yeah.
Third time's a charm?
Yep.
Something like that. Speaking of third time's a charm, Jose Mourinho is still a bit alright, isn't he? Let's be honest. He's just, for me, the best. I think Tuchel is the best manager we've ever had. Only because of just like how he managed to do it. No, okay, hang on, no. Let me take this back here. I think Tuchel's my favourite manager we've ever had. And
Fair.
first round, Jose Mourinho is the best manager we've ever had.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho, despite going to Tottenham, despite coming to Chelsea a second time and still being fired, and Manchester United, he's doing a great job at Roma. And the biggest flaw that you said to me before about Jose Mourinho was about the youth. Chelsea's big vision is to promote the youth. We've bought a lot of youth players. We have got academy graduates now in the team who have broken through and become mainstays. Jose Mourinho at Roma is playing a lot of young players. Is Mourinho finally mature enough to be Chelsea's manager with owners who are willing to splash cash and are willing to give long-term plans and projects? Like, doesn't this just sound a bit too perfect, or am I the only person to believe that?
No, this is the thing. It is. When I bring it up and I hear people say, oh no, come on, we can't go there again. Like, no, it's not going to work. Why? Because of the circumstances as to why it didn't work before. This is different. It's different. It's completely different. And I would argue that getting him back for the second time was more sentimental than this time now. Much more. Because getting him back then was just for the basis of, oh no, it worked before, like, so we just got to do it again. It was the same ownership, the same style, the same regime, the same methodology. This is completely different. New owners, as you've said, cash is available in abundance, more than it would be under Roman. And we, except for the first time where it was there, but this is on par, if not more. And the point about the youth is the one issue that I've always said, if there's one thing that I could, fix when it came to Jose, it would be, you got to turn more to the academy and you got to turn more to players that are up and coming and give an opportunity. Whereas I feel like that goes in correlation with what Roman demanded. Roman demanded, hey, you've got to be, competing for the title. Sometimes there's no time to look at the academy and do that if the expectation is that high. So I understand. But this goes as to why he's doing what he's doing at Roma. Jose's not stupid, and I feel like if he's given a brief of what the project is, he'll go along with it. And it's a case of at Roma, he knows budget is limited, has to turn to the academy. It's meant to be a project. There was no expectation of instant success at Roma. That was never the case, and he said it himself. He said it's a different type of job, a different type of profile. I'm a little bit more relaxed, but he is looking to the kids. Promoted in total 10 youth players from the youth team. 2 of them have been sold. One of them on loan, and 7 of them still at Roma. One of them is basically a starter now, Zalewski. And it's funny that he actually took Tammy Abraham from Chelsea, who did come from our academy, and decides to take him on board as a signing. I honestly think, and yesterday we saw the thing about he brought the Roma under-14s into the first team gym to celebrate because they won their derby. That. I mean, do you know what I mean? So I honestly think, if there's that one point that's been sorted, or if there's that one point that could be explained by the ownership, if there is going to be a discussion with Jose, I have no doubts he'll agree. Because if you give Jose time, you guarantee, and you go, look, we're going to give you as much time as we can, which Roman I don't think really could, based on results, and rightfully so. But these guys are a lot more lenient, and I think Jose would welcome that, absolutely. So, yeah.
If we did it, it's like, you look so stupid if you bring Mourinho back for a third time and it just doesn't work. And you could argue that after all of the other managerial moves that he's made in the Premier League particularly, that if he was to come back and it didn't work out for whatever reason, it would potentially tarnish that relationship and history between Mourinho and Chelsea forever to an unrepairable level. But I don't know what it is about this idea that just gets me going a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I just think maybe it just sounds like such a good idea.
You know what it is?
Should we put him in tier 1?
I would. I'd put him in great. And on the back of that, I would put JT as his assistant. In the same way that Arteta was able to grow under Pep, I feel like JT, who's been great in terms of being an assistant so far, this is the next step, to be an assistant at the top level, and then after that there's a scope to become a manager at some point. So I think that's what I would do. And you don't have that pressure of JT being like a Frank because he's just the assistant. That's it. That is it. And those two together, but is everything Chelsea's been about for the last 20 years. Do you know what I mean? It would unify everybody. Yeah. Everyone would get behind it. It would bring that discipline and that winning mentality that we've been lacking for a little while now. it brings everything that we want, at least for the next 2-3 seasons, in order for us to rebuild our foundation under the new owners. So I would do it.
All right, cool. Mourinho's going in the top tier. Do you know what? Like, I feel like I've got a weird smile on my face throughout this whole video, which could be interpreted in such a bad way. But it's just because, like, when we look at what we've got now and what's going on now, and when we talk about some of these managers and we rationalise some of these ideas, it just sounds so much bloody better, doesn't it? Julian Nagelsmann, a project manager.
I've not thought of him.
Is this doable? There's a chance that Bayern don't win the Bundesliga this year. Is it too detrimental to any manager if Bayern Munich don't win the Bundesliga to keep their job? If they don't win the Champions League as well, it will be considered a failure this year at Bayern Munich. So because it is so tight in the Bundesliga, is there any chance that Bowley, who wants to make a manager, the project long-term vision manager, could Julian Nagelsmann be that man?
It's mad because prior to him getting the Bayern Munich job, I would have told you yes. But when you look at it now, man, Bayern Munich don't look as strong as they used to before, did they? Or do they? And I think...
No, and that's with Mane too.
Well, yeah. At the same time, though, I do think that it is impossible. I don't see Bayern Munich letting him go, unless if they decided to sack him. But then they'd be in the same situation as us. So unless they want Potter, then we can switch. But,
should we give up? Should we just go and see if they want to just go down to some Bavarian pub and have a beer and just like negotiate a swap deal? And you know what? You can have Havertz because obviously he's loved in Germany still, and we'd like Mane because we heard that he likes a bit of London once in a while. So that, it sounds like a fair deal to me. No money needs to be exchanged hands. We don't need to pay any kind of payoff to Graham Potter. We just take big jewels instead. But to be honest, I don't really want Nagelsmann. I'm more inclined to say no, based off of the parameters that I actually prefer. Weirdly, I think it's amazing how we get attracted to defence-based football again with Simeone, just because we just don't want to lose games of football anymore.
it's our DNA, isn't it?
Nagelsmann great for you, or because I could see why. It's not impossible, but maybe is it impossible? Do you reckon he just can't leave Bayern?
I just don't think he'll leave Bayern. I don't think they'll get rid of him. I just think that's a contract that they probably got in. I think they got him in not for the short term, for the next just 1 year or 2 years. I genuinely think they want him for more. So I just don't see him leaving, let alone come to us. Right. I just don't see him going anywhere.
Impossible it is then, mate. I'm moving him into Mission Impossible. Speaking of a man who did what many thought was going to be very difficult, but he managed it, and he is the Argentinian national team manager, Lionel Scaloni. Oh. What do we think about this man? I think the big problem that I have off the top of my head is I don't think he speaks very good English.
Oh, well,
so when we're trying to bring people together in a group right now, imagine if they just don't talk to one another.
That's all right. Enzo will be the captain. We'll just let him do all the work.
Enzo,
He'll
yeah.
be captain
but after the way he played
translator.
against Tottenham, he's absolutely nowhere near the captaincy for me anytime soon. But that is like a serial winner you can get when you want to go from losers to winners, and then you bring in a manager who wins a World Cup. Is this possible even, or is this a short-term project thing again?
No, we got to be realistic as well. We could have said the same for Scolari. Man won a World Cup with Brazil, but was fantastic in the World Cup with Brazil. When he was managing them at the time when he won it, came to Chelsea and just absolutely depleted.
Yeah, he can't bring Messi with him either, can he?
And you can't bring Messi with you. So you never know. It might, but it's a very, very risky move. Too risky to bring in someone on the back of one competition, albeit the World Cup. Fair play, and he's a young manager, so absolutely fair play. And in terms of the way that he is, the way that he got Argentina playing, his whole mannerisms, the way he talks, everything it looks great. But I just don't feel like there's enough there to bring him to Chelsea and go, well, go on, take an elite club in world football. I just don't think that's the right thing. So I would say, even though the World Cup manager, I would say no thanks.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's bold of us. Moving in to Luciano Spalletti, the Napoli manager, 18 points clear at the top of Serie A. This guy looks like the real deal. And the exciting thing about this, if it was feasible and if it was possible, was they've got Big Vic up front. Victor Osimhen, who's also scoring goal after goal after game after game after game. Chelsea desperately need a striker. And we both know from your video on your channel last week that we both want Victor Osimhen. And I've never ever seen the Italian league so destroyed by one team in I don't know how long, and Napoli could win the Champions League this year as well. How much of that do you think is down to Spalletti, or do you think this has been something that's probably been in the works at Napoli for a while, but all of a sudden it's all just clicked? And is it that Napoli team that are that good, and is it just happens to be Spalletti who has managed to get this crop of players at this moment? Or is he something special? And is it even possible to get him? Surely Napoli were never going to let this guy go.
Spalletti would be... I don't want to say... Well, it could be borderline impossible. Why? Because if we're dealing with Napoli, we got to remember we're dealing with ADL again. And our past history with that geezer is horrific. In every sense of the word. It's too difficult, too stubborn. Things don't get done very quick enough. It's hell. So that's one. But with Spalletti, the way Napoli are playing, I think there is credit that goes to Napoli. There's credit that goes to him. And there is the basis of how long it took for Napoli to get to playing that way, which in England and here in the Premier League can be very difficult, as proven with Graham Potter.
Yeah.
But there's also a case to be made about the opposition in Italy and the fact that no one else is really on that level and other teams have issues. Juve plummeted into the depths of hell. AC Milan have faced a little bit of inconsistency. Roma are not quite there yet in terms of challenging for the title. We know that, although they are trying to fight for top four. Inter, not at the same level that they were. They've come down a little bit. Napoli are the only ones that have just been consistent. And albeit things have gone their way and they've made things happen, Spalletti does deserve credit. But would he be able to duplicate that in the Premier League, or replicate it? Sorry, he can make a case. He can make a case.
I think for Spalletti, I think it's impossible because I just don't see how Napoli would let him go. And as you said before, dealing with Napoli is not an easy thing. I think there's got to be an element here of like managers that we both personally either like or don't like. Spalletti, I'm indifferent to him in the sense of I didn't know much about him as a manager before this incredible Napoli season, but then I guess that's also the calibre of manager that Chelsea need to be trying to attract. Chelsea, if we're going to sack Graham Potter after investing the money in him, that is because we accept that what he's brought to the club isn't good enough. As a result of that, you have there is no ceiling to how good that manager can be, but there is certainly a minimum as to how good a manager can be to even be considered for employment by Chelsea Football Club as a result of admitting that Graham Potter wasn't the man. Luis Enrique is the next one. 4-3-3 manager, currently without a club as well. So this to me seems like one of my more favoured potential appointments here if Chelsea are to sack Graham Potter. Luis Enrique is one that I've probably seen more than anyone else. What are your thoughts?
I can't help but think I'm not convinced with Luis Enrique. The success that he had, right, albeit he does deserve some sort of credit because no manager, I think, has a complete, a free day, basically. Like, no matter who you're managing, you can just sit back and just watch your team win. That's not how it works. You do need to do some work. So he does deserve credit. But that Barca team he had was just, it could manage itself. Do you know what I mean? And he had it for a very short time. That's when he won everything. And that's all we've seen. I don't know how he would perform, for example, coming into the Premier League, where there is a little bit of pressure, when there is a little bit of building. I think it's going to be complete unknown territory for him. The same argument that you could make for Hansi Flick, but with Hansi Flick, like, he done what he done at Bayern Munich, we're seeing what he's done at Germany, and it's not quite the same. I worry that with Luis Enrique, on the back of, yes, he's won all of those trophies in, one season? Or max 2 seasons, in the space of 1 or 2 seasons. He's done all of that. And that's all we've seen from him. It makes me a little bit nervy. So I don't know what we get.
Totally back that. And it's like, again, it's cross between, are we looking here to try and get somebody in and continue the same patterns of Abramovich hiring and firing managers, or are we fully without fail or regard for anything, are we buying into the manager at Chelsea? Get used to him because he's going to have to be here a long time. In which case, we would be sat here not making this video today because we would literally just hold our hands up and say, Graham Potter signed a 5-year deal. We'll see you when the contract runs out, mate. And I hope you shut the door behind you. For Luis Enrique, I think, it's at the moment, I'm so bored watching Chelsea play football. And I think Luis Enrique would get Chelsea playing some really, really good football. And I think it goes with the strategy of we want to try and move away from the 3 at the back system. And I'm also looking at that tier 1 right now, and I'm seeing 2 managers who are stereotypically known as defence-minded managers, and then Hansi Flick needs a partner in there. And I don't know, like
he's a tag team partner,
and then we could see throughout the rest of the video, like, is there a 5th guy who comes in, defence or attack? I just think Chelsea are more a 4-3-3. I want to see us use a 4-3-3, and I want a manager to come in with some kind of creative nuance to be able to create a midfield 3 at Chelsea that actually cooks, as opposed to, I don't think this 4-2-3-1. Maybe it's just I'm potted out. Maybe I am Wingardium Leviosa off a cliff, or Avada Kedavra by Graham too hard. Maybe I just don't ever want to see 4-2-3-1 ever again. I don't know what I want anymore. I just don't want him.
Hey, that explanation was world class. Fair play to you, mate. Fair play.
I don't know if it was, but
no, you know what? On that basis, yeah, you know what? Luis Enrique is definitely an upgrade on Graham Potter. That's 100%. Right? So yeah, throw him in, great. We'll put him in next to Hansi Flick.
Maurizio Pochettino.
Oh.
Former Tottenham manager, former PSG manager. For me, I'm no thank you. I'm not interested in this bloke. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as he's been given credit for. What credit does Maurizio Pochettino deserve for losing the only Champions League final he got to with Spurs in the first 4 minutes to Mohamed Salah? And then he's got a PSG team who, well, I mean, if you can't win a Champions League with Mbappe, Neymar, you got Lionel Messi in a mixer as well, and you still don't happen to win a Champions League with that team, you've got a screw loose, mate. I just don't think he's that great of a manager. I think he had a time frame where he could have been seen to be good at something as a manager, but he didn't win anything really worthy of note.
No.
So in the process of doing that, I can't let a Tottenham manager, an ex-Tottenham manager, go and manage Chelsea right now when we are falling out of love with elements of our club. How can we fall back in love with Chelsea with Maurizio Pochettino at the helm?
Yeah, no, I mean, with Poch, look, it comes to the fact that as much as I'd say no thanks, I genuinely think it's impossible. I don't think he would want to come to Chelsea. Unless if the money was stupid, which right now it wouldn't be impossible for Chelsea to dish out a crazy contract because we've just done it. But Poch, one thing he deserves credit for, yeah, he lost that Champions League final, but bloody hell, he got Tottenham to a Champions League final. I mean, that's unheard of, right? So that's the one thing that I'll turn and go, all right, fair play to you. But apart from that, yeah, I agree. I think he had an opportunity at PSG to really try and cement some sort of silverware onto his CV, right? The Champions League is difficult, and I truly think with PSG, I don't care who's in charge. PSG are not winning the Champions League. I don't see them ever winning the Champions League.
It's like a curse now, isn't it, for them?
It is, and it's just, I think people have an expectation because it's Mbappe and Messi and Neymar, then they're going to do it, and that's just not how it works. There's other teams in Europe that are collectively stronger than PSG, with managers that can come up with a system to just nullify PSG, and they don't have anything else to back themselves up. So I think with that, there's an opportunity for Poch. There was an opportunity for Poch to have done something, domestically, and try and get PSG probably to the Champions League final. If you've done it with Spurs, you should be able to do it with PSG, and he didn't. So yeah, overall, look, I think he should never have left Spurs, and I think maybe he would have been able to build on something, and then who knows where that could have gone. But overall,
maybe not though.
But maybe not. But I mean, yeah, it was beginning to come down. But this is why I'm saying his ability as a manager, I think, is limited. I think Tottenham and like where they were, I think that's Poch's level. That is where he operates. It's like we're talking about Potter now, and he operates at a certain level. Some managers just operate at a level, and they can't go higher. And I think that's Poch.
No, I'm in full agreement with that. There are two more managers left. And I think you should be able to guess them both based off of the two massive Chelsea-related names that we haven't spoken about yet. One is obviously so much related to Chelsea that, of course, and another one is probably the joint highest, at least from my perspective of what I've seen, managers that have been linked to us as a result of the potential sacking of Graham Potter. Can you guess what the two managers we have remaining to talk about here are?
I know there's definitely one. But I don't know who the other is. I know we're going to talk about Thomas Tuchel.
Correct. There's one more. There's one more manager that we've just not spoke about, and he's bored out of his mind, mate.
Huh?
He's bored right now.
Hiddink?
No, mate. No, I left Gus Hiddink out, to be fair. He wasn't even one of the other two. The other two were Ruben Amorim from Sporting Lisbon, just 'cause I think it could be like another one of those stories where manager has a good little tiny purple patch and then we don't. And then Marcelo Gallardo, the Argentinian River Plate bloke. To discuss here of any note, Thomas Tuchel and Zinedine Zidane.
Oh, yeah, Zidane. Bloody hell. I forgot about Zidane.
I was wondering how many flipping mid-roll ads I was going to have to put into this part of the video before we got Younes on board here. But let's start with Tuchel.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the most I was going to make up a word there. Only a lunatic, surely, could ever consider Thomas Tuchel even considering opening the email, let alone answering the phone or even beginning to type back a message to Todd Bowley. Imagine the awkwardness of that conversation. Be like, Tommy, mate, I hope you've enjoyed yourself for the past few months, despite the humiliation that comes with being sacked after a bad little run of form. But like we thought the GP was going to come in and take the flipping brain surgeon's job, and he did, and he didn't do a very good job. So we need the surgeon back in again to put everything together because we're brainless, we're clueless at the moment. Surely it's impossible for Tuchel to come back. Yeah, Tell me I'm wrong, because at this point in time, I would kind of love it, but I just think even Chelsea can't do something this daft, can we? Can we sack a manager and then re-employ him 5 months later?
Not 5 months later. Let me tell you, in the same way it happened with Jose, down the line, it could happen in the future with Tuchel. We might see Tuchel back at some point, but not now. Nowhere near now. It's impossible.
The cat's going mad. The cat wants TT, mate.
The cat wants TT. No, look, with Tuchel, would I have him back in an instant? Absolutely. Right? We'll pick up where we left off. We'll just ignore that. What happened didn't happen, basically, right? But we have to acknowledge what went down between him and Todd Bowley. Just Todd Bowley. Looked deep.
Yeah.
It looked deep.
We're talking about a few owners' time here, aren't we?
Well, I mean, the thing is, when you see that clip of when they come out the tunnel in our first home game of the season, and he shakes hands with Egbali, and you can tell they're on good terms, and then he just ignores Todd Bowley and pretends he's not there, and Todd comes in for a little bit of a handshake and backs off. I'm like, flipping, what went down between you guys, and then you get sacked on the back of being, of players coming in the window. There's no chance that Todd's going to pick up the phone to bring Tuchel back. He's hesitating to sack Potter. What makes people think he's actually going to pick up the phone and go one step further and bring back the guy he sacked? It's just,
I think there's a big ego element with sacking Potter as well, because I think, I mean,
you admit you're wrong.
Even those people who only a couple of days ago were heavily supporting the backing of Graham Potter, I even did it as well, and then I saw something against Tottenham which is just inexcusable for me, which is Chelsea playing their biggest game of the season and not even flipping trying. Players play on the pitch who are absolutely flipping useless, leaving 100 millions of talent on the bench and then bringing them on when you go 2-0 down and the game's already lost, dead and buried. That's when our manager starts to react to things, is it? So for me, I think Thomas Tuchel was pragmatic enough in a sense as Chelsea manager to be able to literally come in and within minutes basically come into the club and revolutionise a way of playing and a way of thinking. Graham Potter, despite injuries and everything else, has had 5 months here to be able to kind of stamp some kind of Graham Potter authority on this team, whether there's injuries or not. And now that we don't even have that excuse anymore, we're getting more excuses of different calibers of excuses and different varieties of excuses now. So for me, I think Tuchel was always wrongly sacked. I don't think Tuchel should have ever been sacked,
Yep.
but it was probably a premeditated thing that went all the way back to initial conversations, and Todd Boehly is now the boss. We have to accept it and move on. I think for now, Tuchel's impossible, isn't he? Because it's
impossible.
just not going to happen that soon.
No chance. No chance. And I don't think for the next few years,
No
at
chance.
least. So we'll wait for the future.
Yep. All right, well, that was one of the big ones. The other big one, the final... This has been probably one of my favourite videos I've ever done, which I know some people are going to be like, you shouldn't be so happy, you shouldn't be so positive, but it's interesting to speculate about the future. Zinedine Zidane, arguably one of the most wonderful, talented, delightful footballers to ever grace planet Earth,
Yeah.
became a manager, won 3 Champions League trophies in succession with Real Madrid, unprecedented levels of European success.
Yep.
Real Madrid, he's basically gone to Real Madrid and he's no longer at Real Madrid, and then he's taken some time off football because how can you ever get better than Real Madrid? I've got a job for you, Zinedine, mate. Chelsea Football Club is delicious. We are delightful. We are the 3rd best club in West London. It's a beautiful place. They've got lovely parks, lovely fields. It's green. If you go over Stamford Bridge in the sky, it looks really, really nice. And Heathrow isn't that far away. But Zinedine, my biggest concern with you, mate, isn't that your English might not be wonderful. We can get translators in. We can
No,
work around
by the
that. We've
way,
seen it
he
before.
does speak English to an extent. That is a myth. Just
Is it a myth?
Frank Leboeuf confirmed that as well. So I don't know why people haven't heard, but he does have. He spoke with David Beckham for years as well. They were good friends. So yeah, he does speak English to an extent. To an
Je
extent.
suis anglais. It's a Marmite kind of manager, this, I think, because
Yeah.
you're either going to love the idea of having Zidane at your club, or is this just one manager too far to put into the great category because we know that Boehly wants to change the way that Chelsea is structured and ran. We don't want to be hiring and firing, and is Zidane going to want to stick around long enough to be Boehly's long-term man? Let me know your thoughts on Zinedine Zidane, Big Younes.
Zidane, I'll tell you what. Just from a personal perspective, if Zidane was Chelsea manager, I'd love it. Right? I'd be like, flip it.
Of course
this
you
is
would,
great.
yes.
You know,
Many reasons.
many reasons, but we have to go back to the point. And yes, he was very successful at Real Madrid. Right? That first stint, especially 3 Champions Leagues in a row, is unbelievable. There's managers that we've all mentioned that were unable to do that. You're talking even Jose and Ancelotti and all of these guys. No one's done it 3 in a row, so that takes something. But at the same time, he's only had Real Madrid. That's it. That's it. It's the same way I look at Luis Enrique or I look at Hansi Flick, and I'm like, okay, it's a bit limited, but it might end up being good enough. You never know, unless if you go with the risk, and that's what it is. It's a risk. With Zidane, I don't even want to talk about longevity because I honestly just believe it comes with results. If you get results, you stay longer. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's the same across the board with like every person involved, right?
Yeah.
Like Zidane keeps winning, he's going to want to stay.
Yeah.
If Zidane keeps winning, Boehly's going to want him to stay.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we're talking, in Chelsea's sense, about a long-term manager. I think you're absolutely right with that, and I think that is, at the moment, one of the things that people aren't talking about when we explain the reasons why we don't want Potter as the manager anymore. Because Chelsea, whether anybody sees like the most important thing right now as rebuild, it's going to take time. Time might well be an infinite idea, but in the sense of delivering on a football pitch, it is not infinite. There is a shelf life of this time
100%.
that has to be given to Graham Potter before we start talking about plenty of other things than a rebuild. We start then talking about how on earth can we con the tax man to avoid FFP sanctions because we cannot earn enough money because we don't get good enough results to be in European competitions to ever justify why we've spent £600 million. It isn't just about buying into a new project. It is about immediate success as well, to an extent. So, I believe if Zidane was to come in, I think he is that inspirational manager who would be able to immediately get a tune out of these Chelsea players.
The problem is that the national teams are probably where people are thinking he's going to go more likely, but the France job is out of reach, which is the one that everyone, me included, thought he'd go to. So now the options are open. I think if Chelsea were to be available, he has to listen. He has to listen and consider. So don't write it off. Don't write it off. It is a possibility.
You guys can see it here. We have got 5 managers who Younes and I have both managed to agree after I don't know how long this video is. This could be an absolute marathon. So if you're still here, hit the like button, subscribe to both me and Younes. But we have got Mourinho, Luis Enrique, Diego Simeone, Hansi Flick, and Zinedine Zidane in the great potential Graham Potter replacements. This has honestly been a lot of fun to do.
Loved it.
But the question is, will we ever see any of these blokes manage Chelsea again in the future? Or is Graham in it forever? Do we just have to accept life under the GP? Or do we get in a proper surgeon again? I don't know, man. I think it's time. We've both said it's time.
Yeah.
Any final words before we wrap this one up and send people over to your channel?
It needs to happen ASAP. And honestly, if it doesn't, I'm not going to accept that's life. For me, that's not going to be life. And I've got all the energy to fight against it, so I don't want to. But no,
Right.
Graham Potter absolutely does. I feel like it's the time he needs to go. And hopefully one of these 5 names can be the ones that are coming in to entertain us going forward. So that's it. And obviously the follow-up to this conversation will be over on my channel, as will be explained now. So.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this tier list. It's a bit of a mad one. In the comments down below, I can't believe we're even doing this video. After 5 months ago, we were taking walks around the south of Bali talking about Thomas Tuchel being fired. Unbelievable, this club, man. Come on, you Blues.